Welcome to the RetailWire podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another great episode here on the RetailWire podcast. You know what? It is a wonderful day today, and we were just talking a little bit before this that not sure if it's the weather or what's going on, but y'all, if you're listening to this, has it just been weird lately? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But joining me in the studio today, I have got a really, really cool person. This person has been she is the associate professor at the Fashion Institute of Technology. She is Chief Strategy Officer at the Robin Report. She is a senior contributor in retail at Forbes.com. Also on the board of directors at Click Deal Buy e-commerce. She is the CEO and founder of Shelmark Consulting Incorporated, and of course, an esteemed member of the Brain Trust here at RetailWire. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Miss Shelley Kohan.
Thank you so much. It's so great being here. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. And I think I pronounced that right? Is it Kohan?
You sure did. Thank you so much.
Hey, we were joking, and with the last name like Crumb, it's crazy how many people still get that one wrong. So whatever. But yeah, welcome to the show. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? I mean, obviously I read off the things you do, but who is Shelley? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I guess I can start by saying I've literally spent the last few decades serving the retail industry. So in the first part of my career, I really worked in general management and marketing, operations, merchandising and buying, human resources. And so I really come from the industry. Like, I graduated high school when I was 17. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, like so many people. And I walked into Bloomingdale's in September. I just turned 18 and I got a job on the sales floor. And from that day forward, I have been in the industry. So I literally live, drink, breathe, sleep, eat retail.
Yeah. So you just jumped in 17, 18 years old, walked right in and were like, this is it. Let's go.
I do. And I'll tell you a fun little story. So my grandmother's cousin owned a soda shop. So when I was like literally 7 or 8 years old, I would run around and I would take people's orders and bring them food. So I worked in my grandmother's soda shop. This is down in North Carolina. And I really found that I really enjoyed serving people and like making people happy, so it kind of stuck with me. And then if you fast forward to high school, I took a senior class called fashion class in high school. And we took a field trip to a retailer called Garfinkel's, which you may not even remember, down in Washington, D.C. And I have to tell you, I was blown away. I said, oh my God, I would love to work in this environment every day. And then that's what I've spent at least my first part of my career, literally in stores.
Oh, that's so good. So what was, you mentioned the people aspect and kind of the service element there. Would you say that was probably your favorite part of working in the stores, or was there another thing that was kind of like your highlight?
Yeah, I have so many highlights. The industry's been very good to me. And I will tell you that when I first started on the sales floor, I loved serving customers, working with my coworkers, being what we call on the floor. So if you're not in retail and you say, oh, we're on the floor, people don't know what that means. But Brian, you know what that means. I love being on the floor. And then I got promoted into the buying offices at Bloomingdale's, became a buyer's assistant. And I loved my buyer, loved her. She was amazing. First, I had a male buyer. He was fantastic. Then I had a female buyer, both very instrumental in kind of role modeling me. But one thing I learned myself is I don't want to be in the office. I don't want to be looking at reports. I don't want to be looking at numbers. I want to be back. I want to go back to the stores. So after working in the buying offices, I don't know, I guess it was about a year and a half or something like that. I went back to the stores and I literally stayed in the stores for the next 2 decades until I got a corporate position. So I really just love being in the store environment.
Yeah. Well, and then even moving out of the store environment and going to a corporate role, I mean, I would imagine just based on that, do you still get out to stores and different retail environments? You probably do that pretty regularly, right?
I definitely, when I went to corporate, even though it was a corporate job, for Macy's West, I was director of logistics and I was responsible for about 85 Macy's stores. And I knew the only way you can really be successful as a leader in our industry is by being in the trenches, walking. So I have responsibility for writing best practices, receiving, merchandising. I walked every receiving dock. I would be out in the stores. Then when I went to Bloomingdale's, I was operating vice president of the 59th Street store there on 59th Street in New York City.
Oh,
I
wow.
would literally
No big
yeah.
deal, you know?
Literally, I would walk the store every day and I would talk to associates, sales associates, stock associates. And here's a real funny story. So I started at the Bloomingdale's 59th Street store when I went to college in New York when I was 18. I left, I went to California for 14 years. When I came back and I was operating vice president, there were still people there when I was there. And I remember I walked up to this stock associate when I was operating vice president and I said, "Hi, Sharon, do you remember me? We worked together back, in 19, 80, whatever." And it was the same person. So it came full circle for me, and that's great. And then I went to Saks Fifth Avenue and I was vice president of store operations again. So yeah, I was in the stores all the time.
Absolutely. Well, and I think, that goes back. I mean, here in my area of the world, here in Bentonville, Arkansas, we have this little guy named Sam Walton that kind of did a big thing for the retail industry. And what you're describing is exactly what he used to do. And that was go out, meet the people, sit down on the floor with them and just have that conversation of what's going well here, what's not. And so I think you're spot on with that it all comes down to that relationship, right? It comes down to knowing what's happening in the stores. You're not going to know by emails going back and forth or phone calls. You need to get out and you need to actually see it, right? And so you feel connected. Then, when you approach that stock associate, you were saying, did she recognize you?
Well, it took her a minute because I was such a
That's okay.
baby when I started.
Understood. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she was blown away that I remembered her name from, 14 years ago or however long it was. She was just blown away that I remembered her name. I saw her and I knew her
Yeah.
name right away.
But I think that, that goes back to kind of what we're saying is when people know that you care, and then that's also going to improve the store morale, right? And so she probably went about I'm going to make a big assumption here and say she probably went about the rest of that day going, wow, somebody remembered me. That's really cool. So I guess what I'm doing here probably does matter. And that's what a lot of us don't think about is the impact that we can have just by remembering somebody's name, by remembering,
Absolutely.
who they are, any detail about them. And so I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, retail is a people business. People
Absolutely.
don't say
Absolutely.
that, but retail is definitely a people business.
Yeah. Well, and there is an element to it, like you mentioned being on the floor, and for a while I was actually I picked up back. This is a decade or so ago. Picked up an overnight job throwing freight at Sephora, and so Sephora doesn't have employees; they have cast,
That's right.
right? So, and so when
Right.
you're on stage is the front because no matter what, you are there to serve, and that is a performance. It truly is a performance. And even if you're having a crappy day, then they expect you to show up, go out, perform well, and really put your best foot forward, right? So I totally understand what you're saying about being on the floor, being on stage, being that that bubbly personality, because you truly are creating an experience for the customer, right?
Definitely. And I can't
Yeah.
believe, Brian, you just said that because there's two big lessons I learned early in my career. One
Yeah.
was you were on stage 100%. So I always knew when I became a senior executive and a leader and assistant general manager of a store or vice president of operations, I knew when I walked into that building, that store, I was on
Hmm.
stage.
Yep.
And that was important. The other big lesson I learned in my executive training program back at iMagnin, another nameplate that unfortunately is no longer with us, but
Yeah.
is that you never get a second chance to make a first great impression.
That's right.
Stuck in
That's
my
right.
head for, 40 years or whatever.
Yeah, and I think that there's been kind of a shift in our society that says that, oh well, there. I think it's mostly rooted in the online conversations that we have, right? Because it's easy to look or feel or act a certain way when you're across a computer, but then you get in person and you have to be on. If I'm not feeling it when I'm remote, well, then I can just say, hey guys, unfortunately, some things come up, and I don't have the opportunity to connect with you.
Yeah,
But whenever someone walks into your store and they see you standing right there, there's no escaping that unless you're just being horribly rude.
right.
So don't do that, guys. Spoiler alert: don't be that person. Um, Believe it or not, I've actually seen that person even in recent days, where you walk in and you clearly can go up and ask for help, or you have the intention look,
Yes.
that you're getting ready to approach them, and they're like, "I'm going to go over there," and not calling anybody out, but I will say the store might sound like West Y. Um, I don't know.
Oh,
So, okay, so you started out in retail, you went through, you went kind of into the corporate side. Now, like I say, I know you also work with the Robin Report. I know you mentioned an associate professor at the Fashion Institute of Technology. How did you come into something like that?
yeah. Well, here's what happened. So if you go back to, when I left high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Well, I started taking classes at this little tiny school called Fashion Institute of Technology.
Yeah,
But seriously, it's like the world renowned school for fashion.
absolutely.
And so when I went there, the teachers were just so amazing. They brought the classroom to life. So we didn't just study a textbook, or we didn't just study principles. We actually heard great stories from our professors about what was happening in the industry. And I said to myself, I really want to give back. So I actually started teaching when I came back to New York, and I just taught one class. I was an adjunct professor, and I just wanted to teach one class because I really, in my heart, wanted to give back to the community and give back to the
Mhm.
industry. So I started doing adjunct teaching when I could. And then 10 years ago, I became a full-time, professor. Now I'm an associate professor, and I just feel I come alive. So remember that feeling I told you about when I walked in the store, I came alive? I am
Yeah,
most comfortable standing in the middle of a classroom or speaking in front of people. I just love it. And I just love the students, and I love really feeling like I'm making a big impact on their lives and their future. So I think it's part of the greatest work I've done in the industry is really about, students and about helping people succeed in the fashion
yeah,
industry. And I just wrote a new leadership course that we're going to roll out next year. I've written 3 courses, and I really strive when I'm professoring to,
yeah,
bring relevant, updated content about what's happening in the industry. I got to tell you, Brian, that is a full time job. Just keeping
yeah.
updated on current practices in the industry is a full time job.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, because especially, I mean, it seems like every generation says this, right? But it is going faster and faster. It is going crazier now. And so, especially as we've gotten into some new technologies that have been, released recently and over the last even like 2, 3, 4 years, it seems like that cycle is shortening and shortening and shortening. And so, I would definitely, I do not envy you for the the process of having to stay constantly up to date on stuff, because what you say today in a classroom might be different tomorrow. Literally, like literally a 24-hour cycle could change our understanding of something. And so, I think that's really great, because that kind of reminds me of my own college experience and my master's program as well, because you know the best classes and the best teachers that I had weren't just going through the books. They weren't just teaching on a broad subject, but they made it applicable to the here and now, right? And so, whenever I was in my business law class, then it was truly taught by a judge,
That's
who is
great.
in the court system here locally. And so she was able to come in and say, hey, here are the types of things that I see come across my bench every day, every week, every month, every year. And so here's the types of things that, as a MBA candidate, then here's what you need to be prepared for on your end, so you don't end up coming across my bench at some point, or when to take someone else to a court situation. And so, same thing. I definitely understand the impact of having that immediate relevancy of any of the content.
Yeah, and
So,
I learn a lot from my students too. I mean, I literally learn so much from my students. So
oh,
it's a
absolutely.
two-way street for sure. Um,
Yeah. So now, really quick, where are you at nowadays? Where do you live at now?
Oh, well, I currently live in New York in a place called Croton-on-Hudson, which is about 40 miles north of the city. But Brian, there's another little interesting fun fact about me.
Okay.
I don't think you know. It's so funny because I will go through. I went through a semester with students last semester, and at the end of the semester, they said, "Where are you from?" Yeah, I can't detect your accent. I can't figure it out. And a lot of people tell me this, and then I tell them where I'm from, and they're like, "Oh my God, that's the most fascinating thing I've ever heard. You should start every semester with this." So I'm like,
Okay.
"Okay." I mean, it's me, so it wasn't really interesting to me, but I actually grew up in Japan, Iran, and Germany. And so
Really?
I spent a lot of time overseas. And then I went and lived in Virginia, New York, California, mostly Southern California, then Northern California, and then back to New York. So I've literally moved like 22 times in my life.
Yeah. I, I haven't been that far of distances, but I've moved a significant number of times, and yeah, trust me, I get that can definitely shape who you are, and
Oh,
the accent and everything, and it's funny too. Yeah, I would not have guessed that, so that's really cool. That's right. So what were your parents military or anything, or?
yep,
Yep.
exactly.
Yep. Always know that, right? It's like you're either military, you're missionaries. You got like a handful of opportunities there to probably get it right.
Yeah.
So
But you know what? I think when you live in different places and you live in different countries and you live in different states and cities and communities,
yeah,
I just think you have a broader perspective on things.
yeah,
And it's been great for me to be able to have that type of childhood. I think it's really kind of crafted who I am today.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really good because even I didn't have a childhood of that, but I definitely had I'd say college and forward. Love to travel. I love to go experience new things, and so I definitely agree. I think that opens your eyes to a lot of different circumstances, types of people, types of situations, living conditions, transportation options, you name it. It kind of broadens your horizons to understand what other people are dealing with in their day to day. Sometimes so you can aspire to be better. Also, sometimes so you can simply just be grateful for where you're at, right?
Right.
And so there's
Definitely.
a lot of opportunity to reflect on that. So now, do you have you married? Do you have kids? Do you have family, pets?
Yes,
What's
yes,
behind the
yes,
scenes
and
for you?
yes. I'm married to a wonderful husband. He's awesome and he supports me just amazingly. I have two sons, which are great. My sons are 18 and 15, soon to be 16. And I also have two stepchildren who are 33 and 35. So we have a nice big family. It's fantastic. And I have a dog that is a mix of breed between a Tamascan, which most people don't know what a Tamascan is, and a black Labrador. And she's just gorgeous.
Okay,
She's about 55 pounds. So she's a big dog. She's beautiful. And her name is Princess Leia because I'm a
nice.
super big Star Wars fan.
Ah, fantastic. Okay, so now you just bumped up even a couple more notches there. So then I know we talked about this briefly before jumping into the studio here. So I ask, and that's not your base over your shoulder there, right?
No, that's my husband's.
Okay, but you did tell me another interesting fact about yourself. You are learning to play the guitar.
Oh my gosh, you said it out loud. Now I actually have to get better at it. Yes.
I'm here to prompt. I'm here to encourage. It's really about motivation.
As I tell my husband, I don't want to join a rock band for
Yeah.
sure. But what I want to do is I want to have a guitar and I want to be able to sit around a fire on a warm
Yep.
summer evening and sing songs with my family and friends. That's all I want to do. I have very low bar in terms of learning guitar. So I have to start by, I'm working on learning the notes and learning a few easy songs.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I love it. I just love it. And I you can't see this in the video, but I'm small. I'm like 5'3". So I'm really
Okay.
tiny. So when I tried my husband's normal acoustic guitar, it's like my arms, like I couldn't even reach like the strings. So he actually bought me for my birthday last year. He bought me a mini guitar. It's a Jasmine mini guitar, acoustic
Very
guitar.
nice.
And it's just perfect because it's, I can easily manage it. And so I love it and I'm getting better at it.
That's good. So what just because I'm silly like this, what's the song that you're working on right now?
Well, I love Me and Bobby McGee because it's a song that reminds me of my mother because she used to
Awesome.
play a version that Olivia Newton-John sang way back, which I
Yeah.
can't get a copy of anywhere. But of course, Janis Joplin sang it. So I'm working on that one, which is a
Okay.
fun song and means a lot to me.
Oh, that's really good. That's really cool too. Is that you can kind of tie that into experiences or songs that mean something to you, while you're also doing something that will eventually mean something to your family. And I think that's really cool. If sitting, like you mentioned, sitting around a fire and just kind of hanging out. We have a fire pit in our own backyard, so I definitely get that whole vibe.
That's great. Thank you.
Absolutely. So, okay, so you grew up doing the retail thing. You jumped in right after high school, and then would you say what would you say is something that you've seen? I know we've talked about like interpersonal stuff like that, relations, customer relations, but is there any area that you have consistently seen? Um, Kind of just the same challenges in or year after year after year? I mean, what's something I would imagine you've seen quite a bit of obvious change, but what has kind of stayed the same in almost I don't necessarily want to say a disappointing way, but that's kind of the easy way to say it is what's kind of been what do you wish people could leave behind in the retail industry?
Yeah, I wish, I wish we would, as an industry, I really wish we would fund more innovation. I just think
Mm,
retailers, and I got to tell you what you said earlier about how much we've grown and how everyone does that. I will tell you, since the pandemic, the retail
yeah,
industry literally grew like 15 years in 3 years. I mean,
yeah,
we had no choice. We had to like, just bear down and we had to really quickly use enabling technologies and figure it out very fast,
yeah,
infrastructure, all of that. But I wish we would fund innovation more as an industry. I think retailers in the past have always kind of done it the way they've always done it. And
yep,
the other thing I see that hasn't changed and needs to change while it's gotten better is this silo mentality has just got to stop. So we have
mm,
of course, I did it when I introduced myself. I named all the functions, marketing, operations, blah, blah, blah. So we have all these kind of functions, and everyone kind of works in their own little silo, and that's problematic, especially now, because we really need to be working across functions. And yeah, we've done like, cross functional teams, and I've worked on many cross functional teams and all of that. But the silo
yeah.
mentality, I'd like to see that change. We just have not been able to, do that in a broad way in the industry.
Why do you think that is? Do you think it's a kind of an ego thing? Do you think it's a lack of kind of wanting to release certain things, or do you think it's just that's the way that we've always done it? So why would we change it if it's not horribly atrociously broken? You know?
Oh, well, I think it's horribly, atrociously broken for sure now because
Yeah,
I mean, right now, because of the amount of partners and the amount of things that are happening in retail, the speed to which we're adapting and all of that stuff, I think it is problematic now.
yeah,
I think part of it, yes, is ego, but I also think kind of, we've built this structure of, okay, you're going to be in marketing, so here's the marketing path, and here's the merchandising path, and here's the planning path, and you just kind of get into your own KPIs, your own metrics, your own kind of
yeah,
world. And it's like you're reading how you got your nose stuck in a book,
yeah.
and you're just not aware of what's happening right there in front of you with the other functions. So I just think it's culturally something that's always been indicative of retail, is this kind of silo mentality.
It's funny you say that because the first thing that springs to mind, I was actually just overhearing a conversation earlier today, intentionally. Don't worry, it wasn't eavesdropping, but I was actually overhearing a conversation where this person she was describing her dog, and her dog's a bird dog, and so this dog is so focused, right, on sniffing out the scent of something. And so this dog is so focused, and her fear is that this dog is going to, based on where they live and the climate right now and everything, this dog is going to come across a snake at some point, and it's going to bite the dog, but the dog's not going to see it because the dog is so focused on finding the path, right? And I think we, in retail, in life, in relationships, in anything, we can get so in the weeds that of the hunt, right? We're pursuing, and we know it, we smell it, we see it, we hear it. It's there, but then, like you're mentioning the siloing, I'll just tie it in with that, is you can get so focused on being the expert in one given area that, a lot of people kind of they just get T-boned eventually one day, because over time you might be growing, growing, growing. All it takes is one company, one person, one CEO, one CMO, somebody else saying, we're going a different direction. And suddenly your expertise is cut short,
Right.
right? Because at that point, if that's all that you know and you don't have that broader picture understanding of the process and the overall area that you're in, then you're going to have to go horribly backwards to try and pick up some speed again and get another running start into a different avenue. Where exactly what you're saying, I think if we were to be able to broaden kind of our learning and make it more that melting pot approach, whenever it comes down to getting to know each other's jobs, not so we can take each other's jobs, but so that way we can actually better understand what that flow is. A lot of people don't understand when they make one decision over here, it might impact 15 decisions for other people and other members on the team, and they might not grasp that concept. But I think that that's whenever, if they can learn better, uh, if they can better understand what the dynamic of one decision is, what's that ripple effect, then they're not necessarily going to stay away from that decision, but they would give it some additional thought. But also that makes them very much more intentional with what they do grow in, where they do grow in their expertise and kind of their understanding. So
Yep.
that's really good. So I know we're man, I tell you what, we're flying along. It does not feel like we've been talking for this long. So then you kind of grew up in that. What are you? Let's kind of shift into the current topics. We talked a little bit about what's something that people are missing, but what's something that's really got you excited right now in retail? What's coming down the pipeline that you're like, oh my gosh, it's either here or it's like right on the cusp of here, and you're like, I cannot wait for this to really blow up. What is that for you?
Yeah. So I have something that's really exciting, and a lot of people in retail and academia are running away from it, and they
Hmm.
need to run into it. And that's generative AI. It is
Yeah.
going to fundamentally change how we do business in retail in many different ways. So I think that retailers should put funding into understanding the technology and understanding, it has its, dark side and has its bright side, but understanding both those and really utilizing the technology to help us, really speed up the industry. So I think it's going to really change literally how we do business. I think this old, wholesale to retail model is dead and has been dead. And I
Hmm.
think retailers really need to think, and some of them have. And, one of your neighbors there is one of the big thinkers in terms of this, but they have to really think in terms of a flywheel. It's
Yeah.
not this linear, wholesale, retail, sell it to the consumer. It is a flywheel of many things. So,
Yeah.
I would say
Absolutely.
those kind of two things.
Well, and especially dealing with fashion. So I got a fun one for you that I literally just did this morning, based on generative AI, and the idea of artificial intelligence, improving our processes, right? So in technology, there's a lot of stuff, and I actually saw a video about this about a month ago on LinkedIn where somebody had done this exact same thing, which is definitely what inspired me to take this action today. But I didn't realize just how easy it would be until I was doing it myself. Here's what happened. So I needed to find a shirt, right? And I think this will relate specifically to your fashion side, and everything there. I needed to find a shirt. We have an event coming up. We're actually going to be in New York. in a couple of weeks for the Lead
Oh,
Innovation
yeah.
Summit. Yeah, so we're going to be there, and I'm going. I need a good tech polo, something that's going to be wicking, something that's going to fit me decently. I'm not exactly the 20-year-old shape that I was in, so I'm trying to figure that part out. But the cool part about, and I think that this is where there are so many opportunities for us that people are missing because specifically they're afraid of it, they don't understand it, and that's the normal human behavior is to avoid something we don't understand, right? But I leaned into it today. No joke, this morning I got on Google Bard, because Google Bard can connect to multiple, the internet and everything. It can connect to all the different resources. And I said, what is the most popular uh, wicking polo shirt for trade show events?
That's just crazy.
It pops up 5 results right away and says, here's this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. I said, of those, which is the highest rated? Which has the best wicking properties? Which has the best fit? Boom, boom, boom. And I was able to make my decision, find my shirt, and choose it without ever having to try it on, based in about 4 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes this morning. Whereas I didn't have to go to a store, but I knew exactly what I wanted. And I think that's where, to talk future with you, I think that's where I'm excited to see is I understand technology, the SEO side. I understand the marketing side, right? And I think that we've become so accustomed to writing for the algorithm
Yeah.
that we tend to, we same thing as what we were talking about, the nose to the ground, you're getting really expert in this one area. The same thing this guy said about a month ago on this article I was reading, where he found a rain jacket that he wanted using AI. He said, it's not going to become, future listings are going to become less and less dependent upon the words you put into the description and more into the words that the reviewers are leaving for your product, because it's going to be customer experience based instead of trying to game the system, right?
That's
Because we
right.
saw this 15, 20 years ago where websites would keyword load, and so
Yeah.
you'd have your whole website, and then down at the bottom there was this really weird black section, or all white, or all blue, or whatever else. You pick a color, but if you clicked and dragged, you could highlight, and there were just 300 keywords crammed into the bottom. This is before Google started penalizing all that crap.
Right.
And so, I think we're going to see another big shift, just like Google coming along and saying, hey, we're going to penalize you if you throw out a shotgun approach with these words. I think we're getting ready to see another big shift, and especially when it comes to fashion, when it comes to product and actual like physical product purchases that we're making, because it's becoming so much about that interaction, right?
That's
It's going to
right.
become more about the words from the actual experiencers, versus the people who are trying to tell you what experience you should have with their product. So,
You're spot on with that. I'm a little disappointed you didn't call me, but okay, I'm not going
hey,
to take it personally. But I have to tell you, that was very efficient. So I want to
it was
know
fun.
when I see you at the lead, I'm going to ask you, how's your shirt?
So what would you say is, let me see how you do here.
Oh, no.
What would you say is one of the best, most popular, overall brands for wicking polo shirt right now?
Well,
What do
I
you
would
think?
say that Nike is one of the inventors of the, wicking polo
Yep,
shirt. So I would say that's probably top of the list. But I bet
it was number
there's,
3.
was it number three? I bet there's
Yep.
brands you got that are these niche brands that many of us don't even know about. So
Uh,
can I ask you what was the number one brand? I'm curious now.
so the number one, based on the questions I was asked,
Yes, of course.
came back as Sport Tech. Okay, so Sport Tech came back because they've kind of gleaned some insights off of Nike and Under Armour and all those guys that are doing the big brands. Sport Tech came along, and I think that's probably their niche, is finding the guys like me who are needing something for a trade show, needing something that feels comfortable, fits well, but yet I'll be honest, I'm not a brand
Yeah,
guy, which is hilarious that I'm in retail. I'm just not. If something's got a massive brand across the front, I'm usually not going to buy that
right.
item because that's not why I bought it. That's just me. But I understand the appeal. I understand the necessity of those brands. and those branded items. But yeah, no, it ended up being sport tech for me. And then Port Authority was the second that they listed, and I think that was probably based on price. Price point for Port Authority is maybe a little cheaper than Nike, but yet at the same point, it's still right in that same
Right.
ballpark. So, when I ask what was the best true to fit, because that's another thing for me is that when you're buying a shirt, you never know if
Right.
a large fits like a large or what it's going to do. And so
It's so true. We could have
I asked
another
about a half
whole
of
podcast on sizing. Seriously.
absolutely, and women's pockets in jeans,
That's
right?
right.
Uh,
But
you got to have. Well,
absolutely.
you can't. You couldn't even put my AirPods in a woman's pocket on most products that they made.
Oh, and now we have the fake pockets that aren't really pockets, but they look like pockets.
Oh, trust me, that drove me bonkers whenever I would wear a sport coat and it would have the sewn shut pocket. I'm like, why would you even put this here? Why? Yeah,
But
but I totally understand because there was a something I put on the other day and I can't remember what it was, but I had this aha moment, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about when I say it. I turned around and they said, "What makes that item?" I can't remember what it was. Maybe it was a jacket. What makes that item so great? And I was like, "It has pockets." And that was it. And I was like, in that moment, I realized I now understand why every woman who has ever worn a dress or man, whatever, I don't, it's 2023. I'm not going to judge. The the fact is, anyone who's ever worn a dress and they go, it has pockets.
so exciting. I
That's so
know.
cool. And so that's where it's like, hey, you've done that, the struggle, the pain. And I suddenly got it in that moment. That was it.
Well, the
So,
generative AI also, I mean, what I want to make clear with everyone is that that's what you just described is not replacing physical retail. There's a time and
no.
place for what you need. You need it now. You're on a short deadline. You want it now. You don't want to go to the stores. You don't want to go online. You just want to know what to get and you want
Yeah.
to get it done. And you're going to be here in a couple weeks. But, you know, with that, you also probably want to go in stores sometimes. Sometimes you want to interact with people. And so you really
Yep.
have to look at retail holistically. It isn't one or the other. It's really this
Yep.
holistic view of meeting consumers exactly where they are when they want to shop.
Absolutely, and I think we saw the same thing, when companies started introducing grocery
Yeah.
pickup, right? Oh, well, this is going to shut down the stores. This is going to make it so horrible for everyone. The experience. And no, actually, my wife and I probably spend more
Right.
when we actually walk into a store now, but we know. We signed up for Walmart Plus, right? So we get groceries delivered, we get grocery pickup, we can do whatever, but nothing is going to replace the idea of walking into a store and going, hey, I can sit here and physically compare the multiple items in front of me and see what options there are if I want to walk out of here with this today or if I want to go online and find something after this. Nothing's going to take that experience and completely do away with it, right? So I saw somebody the other day. There was an article about a guy, and speaking of AI and like the metaverse,
Oh,
right? He
yes.
was talking about Roblox and stuff. That there's the program where he was
Oh,
wanting to build his restaurant in Roblox. And so then suddenly these kids, you'd be hanging out on your virtual headset, your VR headset, and you could literally, it's kind of a mix between that, DoorDash, Uber Eats, something. And so you could literally reach up, and if you were within, geo blocked area that his store services, you could be in game, reach up, grab a burger off a shelf or whatever, and 15 minutes later, it's at your doorstep. It charges to your account. 15 minutes later, it shows up at your doorstep, and you just grabbed food still in the metaverse. You pop your visor up or whatever else you want to do, and go to your front door, grab your burger, and get right back into it. So I think it's going to amplify experiences. I think it's going to be fun.
yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of the metaverse. I do think there's a place for retail in it. So I'm not one of the naysayers for sure.
Yeah. What do you see as a really cool opportunity for AI with let's just go specifically with fashion. What's a really cool opportunity you see there? Whether it's design or, logistics, implementation, anything like that.
I think the one area that we really haven't done as great a job at is we've done we're really good at analytics, analyzing the consumer insights, and we're now pretty specific about where consumers shop and what they do. I
Yeah.
think AI can really make a big difference in what I would call this near real time allocation.
Hmm.
So we allocate products so far in advance, and circumstances change very quickly from the time the consumer purchases it. So from the time the retailer bought it 6 months, 3 months ago, consumer situation changes. So if we could have near real time allocation, I'm saying, allocate product a week, 2 weeks before it's actually being purchased. Think about what that would increase. We would always get it right. We would make sure that we're selling, merchandise with at higher margins.
Hmm.
So I think that's a great opportunity and use case for artificial intelligence, is to use that technology to be able to better understand where and when to put specific product categories.
Yeah. Well, and like I also think of like reallocation when it comes to inventory, like surplus inventories and things, because AI is going to pick up on those trends a lot faster. If it notices a certain shirt or shorts or whatever else is selling through better over in this area, or maybe it's the same exact city, but just a different area of the city, and maybe it's a different suburb or something. And so AI could make the call. Let's move, because based on projections, let's move 50 units over here instead, so then that way it keeps your product selling through. You don't have pissed off customers.
Right.
You've got really happy managers because they don't have a warehouse or a back room full of stuff. I think of there was a time back in 2000, and what was that, it was 2010, whenever I was living in Texas, and I had just moved down there, and there was a massive flood in New Braunfels,
Uh-huh.
and the Walmart that was there was already inundated with their normal, it's a very touristy town, right? So they were already inundated with their inner tubes, their floats, their everything else, their towels. What they needed was different supplies. It took them a couple of extra days to figure out, oh, I need to reroute this shipment to here and do this and this and this. But then fast forward a year later, that same Walmart was struggling not with the product, but with the staffing, because the staffing itself was also still run by an automated projection system based on the previous 365 days of performance.
Of course.
And so when you have a massive flood, and you don't need as many people, or more people call out or whatever else, then suddenly your numbers are skewed. But AI, I think, has this awesome opportunity to come in and make sure that stores are better staffed, make sure that your product is there, and to make sure that everyone's experience is better from an internal store experience and from a customer experience.
Agree.
That's
Well,
really good.
that's what I'm excited about. I want to see all these use cases come to life.
Yeah, yeah, we look forward to it, especially here at Retail Wire. Like, we definitely look forward to seeing kind of the different applications. And I mean, I got to be honest, I'm excited. I'm as excited for the losses as I am for the wins, because it's never a loss as long as you learn something, right?
Right.
And so that's what I really love seeing: fail fast, fail frequently, fail forward. So
Yep.
um, so let's wrap up. I know we've been going here, but if you could go back in time,
Oh,
you could go back to kind of 17, 18-year-old Shelley, that you're
oh.
jumping in, and you walked in and you said, hey, this feels right. um, Kind of looking back over your career, looking back over the way that you've seen the industry grow, is there a piece of advice that you would give yourself? Do something faster, do something slower, invest in yourself here, or whatever that looks like. Is there a piece of advice that you would give yourself if you could travel back in time and tap yourself on the shoulder?
Yeah, I would probably tell myself to jump right in and make mistakes. I think I wasn't as risky in some of my decisions. I'm very conservative in terms of, decisions and stuff. So I think jump right in, make mistakes,
Mhm.
and be resilient, and don't take things personally. That was a big discernment, was a big lesson for me early in my young executive career, was learning discernment, controlling the things you can control and letting it go of the ones you can't control. I had a real tough time letting go of what I couldn't control. And I'm going to tell you, it was years and years of really trying to learn that, skill. So that's what I would try to teach myself, you know, 10 years earlier than I learned it jumping into the industry.
I was definitely into my 30s before I started really kind of grasping what I needed to release, So I get that. Well, Shelley, it has been an absolute blast having you here.
So fun.
I really appreciate you taking time to jump in here with us. And if anybody wanted to reach out to you after this, are they able to reach out maybe like on LinkedIn, or what's kind of the best avenue for someone to reach out and connect with you?
They can definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay.
And also they can go to my website, retailshelley.com.
Okay.
Very easy to remember, retailshelley.com.
Perfect. I will make sure that your LinkedIn and Retail Shelley are both in the podcast notes here.
Great.
So check it out, connect with her, and do her a favor, by the way, because we all know that there are those people on LinkedIn that are just kind of, was it that they call them lion, right? The LinkedIn open networker. And so there's like, they just add everybody. I'm not that guy. And also, if I see that your bio says, lead gen expert or whatever else, I'm probably not going to accept your request. But that said, do her a favor, do Shelley a favor. If you are adding her based on this interview, please mention the Retail Wire podcast to her. Just say you heard
Excellent.
about her on here, so that way she knows where you're coming from
Thank
and
you.
the way you know her from. So that I think that can definitely help with experience on both ends as well. So
Thank you for that. I really appreciate that.
I try to look out. So thanks so much. And we will see you again here on the next episode of the Retail Wire podcast. If you haven't already, be sure and hit that subscribe button. We're based out of Buzzsprout, but also you can find us on any of your major platforms. So Google, Apple, Spotify, we're everywhere. Sure and hit that subscribe button. We got a whole lot more great episodes coming up. You're not going to want to miss any of them. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the Retail Wire podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Be sure to subscribe to us on your favorite podcasting platform and leave us a comment for a chance to hear it read on the next show. See you next time here on the Retail Wire podcast.